to another Tech Tuesday session. I'm Jeff Garell with Convergent Technologies Group. Today's topic is going to be a bit on ransomware. Now I've got like 9-10 minutes, so don't really have much time to get deep into it. So we're just going to cover a few things that you should be thinking about. We're going to dovetail a little bit off of our previous phishing session, which is out there and available to take a look at. Because as we discussed there, phishing is one of the primary vectors for getting into a network for these ransomware heathens. That's how they get a foothold and then discover the rest of your network and pivot around and start laying basically their landmines for launch day. So one of the first things to start thinking about, and it's referred to as the CIA, or the confidentiality, integrity, and availability triangle. Because if you're going to protect things, let's protect the most important things, right? So when you think about this confidentiality, integrity, availability thing, look at it as my data and my systems. How bad would it be if confidential, say, customer information got leaked, right? That happens all the time with passwords and social security numbers. Experian's a good example. That confidential data got swiped, and it was bad for them. Integrity. What if you can't trust the data that's in your system anymore, right? What happens to your business if you can't trust what you've got? And then availability. This is the part of the triad that ransomware takes. It takes away your availability. It takes away the systems that you rely on to operate. So as you make plans to mitigate pretty much everything security related, today we'll talk ransomware, think about the important systems that you're going to need to focus on in regards to confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And that'll kind of give you the path of the first things you need to start mitigating towards. So that's the first little tip of the day. Next, you need to secure your administrator's access even further. One of the things these guys do is once they get their foothold, because somebody clicked that phishing email, they start capturing data flow that comes across your network, and they try to capture administrator passwords in particular, because that's how they're going to pivot around to all these other machines and, again, set their landmines and wait for D-Day to happen so they can blow up your network. One method of that is multi-factor authentication, in particular for system administrator accounts. Also reducing privileges to systems down to what's needed, right? Does everybody need access to X folder, or does everyone need some sort of administrative access, even at the lowest level, to get access to something? It requires some of that work, and your CIA is going to help define what people should get to and what they don't really need to, just because it's convenient. Even better if with multi-factor, if you can get that across the board with all of your users, then you've really taken a big step towards stopping them from reusing passwords they found. You're going to make it much more difficult for them, because if they can get on and then they swipe a password, but they can't use it anywhere, then they haven't really gotten very far. Again, it's not the end-all be-all. It's just one of those steps that you can take to just make it even more difficult for them. Your backups. So another thing these guys like to do is they like to go after your backups, because, if you can easily restore, then you're not going to pay them any money. Why would you? So they spend time looking for your backups, making sure that they can take those out, because, they want their payday. Who doesn't, right? So get them off site, get them out of the domain, because if they do swipe one of those admin passwords and then hop on that box with that account from the domain, you're rebuilding, basically. Just prepare to rebuild. Get it off site, get it off of your domain, get it somewhere that isn't so obvious that they'll find it and find a way to get rid of it. Again, not the panacea. None of these are. It's a series of efforts that you have to make yourself as secure as possible. But it's none of it's perfect. It's just make it hard so they can move on to somebody else who isn't taking the time and investment to put these processes in place. Another thing is really monitoring and response, right? If you could put in a SIEM, an SIEM, or Security Incident and Event Management Monitor, box, or some service in place that would start telling you that some weird stuff is happening on the network, right? Why is Bobby Sue scanning with Nmap across the network? She's never done that before, and she's on the cleaning crew, for crying out loud. So these kinds of things are important to put in place. Monitoring event logs, monitoring traffic, honestly, across the network, and looking for anomalies. This is a big ask, especially for smaller companies, right? They don't really have the wherewithal to hire the security operations center team that's worth its salt. It takes away from trying to do their primary line of business and being able to afford growth and expansion, that kind of thing. And in those cases, there's managed SOC. There's managed services that can provide that. Now, if you're big enough to afford to hire some of the best people and run it 24/7, and then good on you, right? And if you're not doing it and you can afford it, you really should. Actually, I pointed this. You really should. There we go, right at the camera. So getting some sort of monitoring in place with alerting and people that can tell when it's a false alarm and when it's a real one and respond to it to mitigate is going to go a long way towards helping and preventing it from getting too far out of whack. And finally, there's some infrastructure-based things you can do, right? As you look at replacing some of your infrastructure, new servers, that kind of stuff, storage, look at products like, say, SimpliVity and Cohesity. The reason I bring these two up is their underlying storage system is object-based, and it is, for all intents and purposes, abstracted from VMware or Hyper-V, whatever virtualization, that's a tough word, virtualization platform you're using, right? So you can't really get directly to it. Now, another thing, SimpliVity is very interesting in that in its object store, it creates these metadata trees that point to the objects that then, as the tree gets formed, it represents a file or an operating system or whatever. When you make a snapshot of it or a backup, all it really does is it creates a copy of that metadata tree. And then once those objects start changing in the live operating system, the objects don't go away. They don't actually change. A new one gets written. This one gets saved because there's some other piece of metadata. There's some other tree that's pointing at that object. So in ransomware, when the OS gets attacked, all of those objects basically get changed, but because there's something else pointing at them that still needs those objects, those original objects, they just get copied. They just get kept. The metadata tree changes. The objects don't get wiped out, and your data is actually still there. Really, your recovery is effectively a right click and a restore. I mean, it's awesome. Cohesity, same thing, object-based store. You can also look at array-based snapshots Now here, it's not. So if you're running Hyper-V, VMware, that kind of thing, you can do a snapshot there, but it's really still part of that higher level OS. It's still there. It's still accessible. You do an array-based snapshot, your hypervisor doesn't really know about it, right? It didn't manage it. Your array software did. So it's, for all intents and purposes, hidden from the attackers who generally are going after Windows boxes, right? Um, Now, all three of these, they all have management interfaces. They all have software and plugins and blah, blah, blah to your vCenter. And so going back to securing your administrator access, you leave your admin password at 12345 6, exclamation point to make it secure. Yeah. Then spending your money on anything like this is really just thrown out the window, right? It all comes back to making sure that each of these pieces is at least looked at, considered, accepted, rejected, modified. But throwing technology at it isn't the only answer. You need to change process. You need to change mindset. You need to incorporate a more holistic look at everything that's going on. So it looks like I've run over just a little bit, but hopefully it was good information. Please give us a call if we can answer any other questions, if we can help you out, if we can point you in any direction. Reach out to sales@ctgva.com. I hope you guys are having a great day. Hang in there with the lockdown. We'll all get through this. Good luck, and thank you.